Good morning. This is Brad. We're at Lviv Croissant in Nikolaev, Ukraine. I'm talking with a friend of mine from the Netherlands, Okrabas. I'm going to have Bas tell you his name.
Hi, I'm Bas Achterbos. I'm from the Netherlands. Been living in Ukraine for about 10 years. And yeah,
Uh, can you tell him anything about your background, where you lived in Netherlands, or your education or work
yeah,
experience
sure.
there?
I used to live in Groningen, which is in the north of the Netherlands. Um, it's a very nice town, full of students. I studied in Leeuwarden. I studied international politics and also local politics. So, yeah, now I'm here.
One of the reasons I wanted to talk with Boss is because the Netherlands have more progressive laws than most of the other states, even in the West, and particularly USA on some topics. As you may well know, Netherlands and particularly Amsterdam had a very good, I should say very good, an extensive policy on legalizing drugs in certain districts, prostitution in certain districts, and other kinds of things that Americans don't ordinarily think of as controllable, workable situations that may be important for our future. And I have a belief that these kind of things are going to have to be used until we become much more automated and controlled by artificial intelligence. But I'll get into that why later. The big thing today is I wanted Boss to tell a little bit about the lifestyle there in Netherlands in each of these spheres. Everything from gambling, drugs, prostitution, any other kind of thing that the West has usually considered a vice, even though other cultures and other times it hasn't necessarily been that. So, if it's okay, boss, I'm going to ask you, like each area, what you have seen and what you have heard, or what they would like to change, or
Yeah.
any remarks.
Well, first, let me explain a little bit about Dutch culture and people. Um, we are very good in making compromises. So we always find we are realists. So if there's a problem, um, we like to find a way so we can deal with it in a logical way. And
Americans have called themselves pragmatists, but the way they dealt with drugs, especially marijuana convictions and doing hard time, now they're selling it on the street corners because it's okay because of corporate taxing structure for it. But let me ask about the individual drugs. Do you know anything that there's? I remember that either heroin or some of the opiates were available on a regular basis in Amsterdam in certain zones, or is that in every other city too?
well, we had a lot of drug users of heroin and the hard stuff. We classify drugs as soft drugs, which is marijuana, and it used to be mushrooms too, but they changed it after a tourist fell out of a window in Amsterdam. And because of that, so we have a lot of, well, I think every country has this people that use hard drugs, get addicted to it, and then, well, hard drugs and regular lifestyle like work and stuff like that, that often doesn't go together. So many of these addicts, they tend to, well, in the Netherlands, we have a lot of bikes. They tend to steal bikes, rob from cars, just doing the stuff just to get to the drugs because they,
Nonviolent street crime, but
well,
I know what you're saying. We have our share of that kind of stuff too in the cities, especially. I know I shouldn't say that in the countryside and suburbs where there's opportunity.
Yeah, and there's a need, and the need was because they needed to score drugs, which are pretty expensive because they're illegal.
Yes.
So they started with a program with methadone. I don't know if that's the English
Yeah.
word.
Yeah.
We call it, we even had a song about it. Busje komt zo. It was about a methadone boss
Oh,
that drove to the to certain areas, and then the drug users used to come there, get their methadone shot, and then they would be like less, they would be happy, drugged, and would not steal stuff. That's the theory, to get their drugs.
yeah. Um, we had a few projects like that. Methadone particularly got popular because they finally had to admit, well, we should try to also treat it. If we're going to incarcerate and punish people about this, we need to also see if we can't slow it down, helping people that turn to this. But of course, they never want to talk about the cultural stressors and the problems of an alienated society, where the bottom falls out for a lot of people in poverty. But was there anything particular? You mentioned mushrooms, or what about amphetamines or uh, marijuana or this hashish? I would hear a lot of from
Hashish,
Amsterdam.
yes.
Very popular back in the old days. I haven't kept up with drugs for a long time.
Ah. Um, so in the Netherlands, it's not legal because we are a country of compromises, and we have a very big um, political fraction that is the central religious people, like Christians and stuff like that, and they were never going to allow marijuana and stuff like that to be legalized. So we had,
Reminds me of Prohibition, the coalition between churches and mobsters.
yeah, with the only people that get better from that is mafia and organized crime,
That's right.
and the same in the Netherlands. So we had to make a compromise, and the compromise was first it started as a trial. We started coffee shops um, where you can buy. Uh, they can only have a certain amount of weed and hashish in stock, and then they would have strict checks on age and everything, and they cannot sell alcohol. So that's why it's called a coffee shop, because the only thing you can buy there is coffee and not alcohol, because they wanted to separate that.
Yeah.
And because we call it gedoogbeleid, which means you let it be. Officially, it is illegal, but we don't prosecute it. So we just let it go. We keep an eye on it,
Uh-huh.
and yeah, see what happened.
We have that with immigration, but the thing is ours is a very divisive issue because of our economy, and it's blamed a lot on immigrants. And you know about our thing with Donald Trump wanting the wall, which actually prevents them from going and coming. Then they just stay in the USA. But I won't. That's another different topic, more economic than anything.
The whole immigrant thing makes no sense to me, because to me, you're all immigrants. I mean, you
Yeah,
didn't.
it's only a matter of how many generations back.
Yeah, I mean, only Native Americans are.
Oh, and it's really funny now in anthropology. They're finding groups that were like 10, 20,000 years ago. They found what kind tin mines in the northeast USA that were at least 3,000 years old, and these are Europeans and or Mediterraneans had come there to mine to make bronze during the Bronze Age. But okay.
That makes sense. Um, uh, yeah, I lost my thought.
Well, we were on
Sorry.
immigration, but I was
Yeah,
asking you too about drugs and
yeah. Um, so this is how a coffee shop started as a test to see if we can because in our eyes often somebody wants to buy soft drugs, marijuana, and then he has to get it from a dealer before the coffee shops. And this dealer also has ecstasy, cocaine, maybe even heroin. So we wanted to split it so you could get because uh,
yeah.
in our eyes, like soft drugs is less of a horrible thing. I think
Hmm.
you can still get addicted to it and everything, but less horrible, less destructive to your body and mind than heroin and stuff like that.
Even though it's not a matter of legality, are there any kind of age factors like you can get into one of these coffee houses if you're 18
Yeah.
or 21, but you can't get into the heroin house unless you're 21 or something like that?
There are no heroin houses.
Oh, okay. No, no opium dens.
Yes, that's completely illegal. No, the coffee shops they have to check your age. You always have to show that you're 18. And in the last couple of years, because they had so many, because we had this program, and the Netherlands is very small, and we're always have been a country of trade. So what happens is that many people from Germany, from Belgium, and even from further away came to us to get this stuff, and it would give the area that the coffee shop was in. It was like horrible with parking and just yeah. So in the last years, they also in some areas you also have to show that you're Dutch.
Ah, okay. So let me get this straight for the homeboys. There is no heroin and opium stores. If you buy it, it's not legal, but it's around. Is that correct? Or
Yeah, I think it's everywhere. I think in any country, even countries like Iran and well, maybe not North Korea, but I think where there's a market,
well, my
people will
big
bring it.
thing was is there's no active entrapment operations by the DEA. Like we have the DEA and the FBI setting people up and blowing them away and putting them in prison, and half of it goes to the agents and the guys that are tipping them off and all the other competition. But that's crime, and it's hard to keep police out of serious money crime. But I won't go into that either. So, but it's so what you're saying is there is no real lots of sting operations for opium products or heroin.
Um, well, I'm I'm not an international crime boss, so I
Oh,
cannot really guarantee there are none. But I know that well, uh, we have because Rotterdam Harbor. It used to be one of, I think for a while it was the biggest harbor in the world.
I read about
Um,
it.
so with that comes a lot of bananas that also contain other
Yeah.
stuff.
Cocaine.
Yeah, and all
Did
kinds
you
of stuff.
did you people have the crack epidemic? I know it was popular, so I don't know if you just might have got that product as well as regular cocaine.
You mean bath salts?
Well, I'm not even sure what they were calling crack back then, but for some people it was like cocaine. For other people, it might have had amphetamines mixed in, and that's one of the problems with these created drugs. You never know who's going to step on it or who's going to change it to their own recipe. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, no, I think uh, yeah. I don't know. It's hard to give an opinion on that.
yeah, well, I mean, we'd have batches of LSD in the old days, and you really that strychnine was a regular component of that, and
Ah,
they did it on purpose because a little strychnine made more body sensation too, and it made a supposedly richer experience, despite the diarrhea and the stomach cramping and everything.
Well, at many parties, and you can have your drugs tested. I know that
Oh,
in America they do it at some spots now too.
yeah, some hospitals and clinics, maybe even legal, I mean, police areas too. I've heard.
No, do because in the
Oh, these are free of police surveillance.
yeah, it's just
Oh, okay.
it's an organization that doesn't want people to get bodily
Poisoned.
harm, yeah, because of
Sure.
bad
Yeah.
drugs. So they test at parties. The Netherlands has a pretty big party scene. It's from the 90s, house, gabber, we used to call it, where because people would dance all night, and if you don't drink coffee, you use something else,
Okay.
cocaine and stuff like that, and ecstasy was also raven in raves. So yeah, because of that, and you can get your drugs tested in many places,
Oh, that's a
and
good idea.
yeah, and then if there's like a bad batch, they will put out a warning.
Yeah.
So yeah, to
Considering Ukraine's going to be a post-war economy, there's no telling what we're going to see here, but that's another thing.
Ukraine now has also yeah, problems with. I think it's like it's not contained to one country. I think they have these bad hard drugs problems like all over the world, and
Yes.
it's just how you deal with it. Um,
I remember in the 90s, just after the collapse, Nikolaev became the opium import capital of Ukraine, and later, because of the needle drug use, especially by the guys that returned from Afghanistan that already had habits, it became the HIV capital for Ukraine too. And I knew some of those people. It was very sad. They told me how they used one needle at one party that they didn't account for, but they needed something. And it got to be like they're like vampires. Pretty soon they wanted somebody else to join them. And there were even people, they didn't care if they passed HIV on. But long story short, uh, the streets were at one time full of hypodermic syringes here, like 94, 95. And I had hear stories about people ordering like a potato sack full of opium flower heads, the pods from Turkey. And they would bring so many across the Black Sea and do their own kitchen processing and keep the whole place totaled for a month or so off that. But
well,
just as a matter of,
you still find needles now and then on playgrounds because I have kids, and it's very worrisome. But yeah, it's part of the yeah.
yeah, it's a bad thing.
I found them in the Netherlands too, by the way. So and in, on Crete, so it's like it's not just. I think they didn't. Um, I think religion often has a lot of to do with how people deal with drugs, because they just say no,
Yeah,
and if after a while, I think people are seeing that just saying no doesn't work. I mean, the people who are addicted are not going to listen to the no, and you're not dealing with anything of the cause or the results, like needles everywhere, AIDS, stuff like that. So I think people in Ukraine are also getting more realist, and I know that there's some methadone stuff going on in Nikolaev as well. So yeah, I think it just get rid of the stuff with religion. Just keep church and state really well separated, and then you're
Yeah.
better off with all
The
these things.
church just can't be practical about a situation where people are under severe stress. They can preach, there's nothing wrong with that, but the people that can't join the afterlife immediately, you know, they're going to have to put up with mortal temptation and trials. I wanted to ask you as an analog, I mean, part of the drug thing. I know Holland has been pretty good on hospice and things like that, end of life. And we occasionally have questions in the West, and I mean, Netherlands is the West too. I don't know why I'm talking to you like Ukrainian people, but the thing is, we talk about Jack Kevorkian with assisted suicide. We talk about rational suicide in the face of serious uh, suffering, and then we talk about let's see, assisted suicide, hospice, and rational suicide. Does Holland have any policies or practices about that?
Yeah, you can if you can talk to your doctor, and if you have like a terminal disease, like constant pain, suffering, I think a doctor and a psychologist, they talk to you and everything, and if they decide that it goes with the family, of course, and everything, but if they decide that indeed maybe it's better to go to the next one, then you can have assisted suicide, and you can actually I don't know if it's like it's more of a termination of life, not suicide.
Yeah,
There's a big label on it,
they
but
put.
and that way you can die with your family around you.
Oh,
You can say goodbye. You can have this whole thing. You can get prepare for it,
yes,
and it's also very realistic. I mean, people are suffering,
that's right.
so you have to do something with it. But this was also it's religion and the church, in the Netherlands, made it
Yeah,
very hard.
yes. In the USA, we wonder sometimes if the morality of the families with churches isn't complicit with the corporate desire to extract every last $1,000 from the family to keep a patient who's suffering alive and undergoing more and more excruciating treatments for more and more time. But and older people become aware of this, especially things like cancer and other serious terminal diseases. But even if it's just a group of lesser diseases that incapacitate, so
Yeah, I myself had family members that had really aggressive cancer, and um, they went to the hospital. They found out too late. Um, then the hospital says so. For example, you have a diagnose. You can have 6 months at most. If we don't treat you, could also be less, but you can do your own thing. You don't have to go to hospital every day, every 2 days. You don't have very heavy treatment, which makes you sick, and like the radiation treatment is really, really hard on the body. And so instead of going further with treatment, you can have the choice just to go home, stay with your family, um, do the last things, enjoy the last part of your life without invasive procedures, and just yeah, live your life for what is left in comfort. And then you also have the hospice, which is for
well,
the
that's
last weeks. My aunt did that, and then it's like you're taken care of 24 hours a day. Your family can visit you. They're always in the beautiful spots. My aunt had one next to the beach in Den Haag, and then yeah, I mean, if life is ending, It's better to end it on a good way and not in a hospital bed somewhere.
Yeah, I've been saying for a long time because I had to consult with hospice patients and their families that it's the most civilized thing that happened in the West for a long time. But and it's not related to money. Or let's put it this way: far less related than all the other routes you can through serious illness and end of life.
Yeah, well, there we have like two different worlds. Your world, American world, where everything is like if you get hit by a car, you have to go into a hospital, you're in death for the rest of your life. We we have a completely different system where you you pay for every month, you pay for your healthcare, and yeah, so you'll never end up with huge bills except for the dentist, which is a struggle
Well,
for
we
everybody.
have trouble with prices on dentists too. And however, we're in Ukraine now, so
It's amazing here.
yeah, almost everything is affordable here
Yeah,
to a Westerner, absolutely. So,
yeah, and I have a right to basic medical care here. I can go to a doctor. I have to wait in line, but
yes,
it's
yeah.
free. I'd rather pay like 20, 30 bucks for whatever treatment I want in a private clinic. But yeah, it's really nice. Dentists are also cheap. But in the Netherlands, we have this system where so you buy healthcare, like some kind of insurance. It's more from companies, and these companies they bargain prices. It got a little worse now from the healthcare providers, from hospitals, from dentists, from massagists, from orthopedic people, all
Hmm.
this stuff.
Hmm.
Um, so that kind of keeps the price down. Um,
The USA is very bad on that. They don't want any corporations to miss any profit. And of course, I mean, the corporations write the laws, so that makes it really good for them, not so good for the patients. But yeah, we have a lot to learn from the Netherlands, and it's good to hear that somebody is trying to look at things from a point of view of an individual.
yeah, well, in the Netherlands, many corporations they look with jealousy to the American ones because
Oh,
they manage to
oh
scrape in
yeah,
so much profit.
yeah.
So it's a delicate balance, and I know that many corporations are also trying to scrape
Hmm.
most profit out of everything. But yeah,
I wanted to ask you too, uh, before we get into sex workers, about casinos or gambling. Do they have any kind of laws or practices on that? Because we made a big deal of that in the USA too. And finally, we have some liberalization. Some states and the Indian nations can have their casinos.
yeah. Well, we don't have native Americans, because, but no. Gambling used to be illegal. And the only place where you could gamble was in national casinos.
Ah,
They have one in Groningen, they have one in Scheveningen, they probably have many more, but there it was legalized, um, and they were state owned because they were very scared of people with gambling problems.
oh,
So in this way, they could monitor people who go there because you have to show your ID, and they can kind of keep an eye on it if you're not losing your house and everything. They're supposed to stop you.
good
So it's like,
idea.
but I think now they changed it, and for I think the last 10 years or something, you have also smaller casinos. But it's also we had a state lottery, which also had this thing in. So to protect people that have a gambling habit, addicts. But now they kind of let it go, and well, of course, there's problems with the internet. Everybody can gamble. They outlawed it in the Netherlands, so you could not officially gamble international. But how are you gonna stop that? So now they kind of legalized it that you can gamble online and gamble
Well, that's good.
in many places now.
We had similar laws for alcohol in the South, especially states, and like North Carolina, they had ABC uh, liquor stores, and we had in Florida the same thing. Some counties can have sales on certain days or certain times, and I remember when I worked in at the main prison where they did the executions in Florida, the you had to drive to the next county to buy any alcohol on a Sunday. But and of course that was a rich county. There's only about 50 people lived there, but they sold alcohol like crazy on a Sunday. But that was the old days. And you only had one, it could be a state law, but they even had state lounges in Florida, but they also had private lounges. And I'm not sure if there was a difference in the laws, but they coexisted for a while too. So it's an interesting thing. Um, Let me ask you about sex workers because we hear a lot about the red light district in Amsterdam for many years. And if you could tell us how maybe that evolved and if it's in other counties or states in Netherlands or.
Yeah, we don't look because we're so small. I think my country is the same size as the Mykolaiv Oblast. The province of Mykolaiv is, I think, just as big as the Netherlands. So we don't do county wise, or we look at cities. Cities have a mayor, and there they have a lot of power. Um, we had the red light district, the same thing like pragmatism, like we have prostitution in every big city has prostitution. It's just you have to recognize that, and then
Yeah.
you know that you want to protect the sex workers. So then what they decided was they would put it in the cities, kind of in this city. They would have one street. We call them windows, where you could have sex workers. So it would, which can be very weird if you don't know, for example, that there's one there, and you used to. I think they changed it now in the Netherlands, in my city of Groningen. But you used to walk through the city center, and then all of a sudden you see women in lingerie saying, "Hello, come to me." But yeah, but yeah, it was again realism. Like we have a problem, we have to find a solution. So they made the later on they also had to pay taxes. They made them private entrepreneurs, and they could rent.
Businesses.
Yes, and people they could rent a room with the window because you need presentation. Um, and this is how they would do it. And then in my city, they made they call it an afwerkplek, which is means a finishing spot. I think that's like a loose translation. So what you could do, it was a drive-through. I
You
think
could
they
go
still
there
have
and
it.
get totally finished.
So you could drive there, and then there are women in a little spot. You can pick your choosing somebody that you like. You pay her, and then you go to a parking spot. This all stays in the car, and then she would go back, and there's security there. So they know that the women doesn't get murdered or anything, and this is how they try to regulate that part. But,
Uh, w- do they delineate like there's different licenses or permits for different types of presentation, like whether on the street or in a club or just by a newspaper or whatever for the girls? I should say girls or guys who are working in the
yeah, we have
sex
them
trade.
both, but girls are still more popular,
Well, sure.
bigger market. Um, yeah, they would have. This is all regulated to build something or to rent something or to like have a. If you want to sell something somewhere, you need a permit, and this permit you have to get from the city council. People, yeah. So everybody knows about it. So it's not like you have advertisements or big billboards somewhere.
Yeah.
But no, everybody knows about it because word of mouth as well. Because it's kind of just yeah, weird idea.
They do they have some kind of health regime where the girls are checked or
Yep.
tested
I think
periodically?
they have a psychologist on site and free medical care for the girls. They can have themselves tested, free condoms, all that stuff.
Well, I know you were saying protected the workers, which is important. Most people don't realize how much violence these people can have in different spots and times against them, not only from the church, but from clients who are drunk or on drugs or in a bad state of mind, or they're mentally ill, complicated by drugs. And then, in addition, you have uh, not well controlled operations where it's not just about sex, it's also about taking credit cards, money, identity, any other thing you can possibly think of. So, yeah, there could be a lot of crime either way from that. And it's good to hear that somebody's taking a realistic approach to it. I know other countries have that too. Cops in those areas know what is and isn't workable. Sometimes it's in league with whatever gang or group runs it, which could be a pretty white collar operation, although it could be also, mobster related. It depends on the city and the neighborhood and everything. But well, let me ask you: is there any other thing that you noticed that the Netherlands is different than America, particularly that you like or that you don't like about your culture in respect to social systems?
Um, I think it's very important to have well the separation between church and state. Um, I also think it's very important to have a political system where you have more than two parties.
Oh,
Uh, like we have many parties. I think you need 50,000 votes to start your own party,
oh,
and so this means that we have many different parties, and to get enough people to be able to govern, um, like just more than the half, you have to make compromises. You have to say, well, this is what your people want, this is what my people want. We have to compromise. So, in this way, you get a much more stable, in theory, government. Not that it bounces one way and then to the other way. It's, yeah, and I think it's much better.
I agree. And the America's pretty locked into the two major franchises. Good cop, bad cop. They take to with each other's crowd. It's like a drama. And of course, what today's the election, so they'll probably be awake and voting anytime now.
Yeah, well, uh, let's see what happens, huh?
Yeah. Well, boss, if there's anything else you'd like to say,
Well, it may sound like the Netherlands has everything really well in control, but this is not the case. We still have illegal prostitution. It's with mostly illegal women from over borders, and it's like there's
Oh, immigrants again.
well, yeah.
Pesky immigrants
Well,
trying to make a living.
if you don't have a work permit, you cannot do it officially, and if you don't have a permit to stay in the Netherlands, because it's pretty hard to get a permit to get in the Netherlands. Um, so that we still have problems, and there's not sure how to regulate it. And with the drugs, I think we're now last 10 years we've been one of the biggest importers in Europe. I think in the world maybe via Rotterdam, and also via Antwerp, which is in Belgium, but it's like an hour drive from us. And all the hard drugs, ecstasy. There are many drug labs in the Netherlands that make ecstasy from the raw products that come in. Um, so yeah, every you can try to solve a problem, but there's always going to be more problems. So
Well, boss, it's been a pleasure to talk with you today. And
Yeah.
I'm glad we're friends here, and I'm glad we met each other over at the English Club.
yeah,
And so, friends in America, please remember to like and subscribe. Also, Boss has a channel, and it's about everyday life and some ideas too about life in Ukraine. And if you want to check out his channel, can you tell them the name of it again?
I'll give you the link. I think it's Boss in Ukraine, but I'm not sure. I
Boss in Ukraine.
yeah, don't
Some-
post too regular.
Okay, well, I'll make sure it's on this, so you can also check his things too. And I'm gonna sign off now. I just want you to see the sign over here for Lviv croissants. Okay, so I'm gonna say goodbye for now. Have a good day. Watch out for the election crowds. You could get lynched.